Greetings. Today I welcome the spiritual Maverick, unequivocally and unapologetically authentic. These are perfect words to describe to you my beautiful friend and guest, author Colleen J. Callaghan. Having been completely redirected by a life-altering near-death experience, Callaghan has become not only a voice for self-empowerment, but a true and genuine trailblazer in the journey of soul embodied divine realization. In her phenomenal channeled book of wisdom entitled Rise in Lucidity, Master Anxiety, as received through her angelic guide she calls the Daemon Michael, Callaghan shares with us practical keys to awaken us collectively to the truth of this life experience, the priceless gift of shedding attachment to illusory stories that bind in limitation, allowing one to fully step into innate divine power as a manifester of our co-created world, a term she's coined to describe our ability to deliberately create with intention. This is a conversation of multidimensional proportions, which will enliven you across all planes, encourage you across all dimensions, and excite you on all levels of being, challenging all preconceived notions of what this life experience is conventionally believed to be, serving as catalyst for the divine alchemy of true transformation. So, if you're ready to journey with us, stepping into lasting change, if you're ready to take that red pill to fall deeper down the proverbial rabbit hole, in this moment, we invite you to take a deep, intentional breath, settling your awareness into that sacred space of the heart, and receive.
Hi, everybody. My name is Colleen Callaghan. You can call me Cal or Callie or Cal, Callaghan, whatever makes you happy. I go by my Colleen and Moore is one of my pen names for my fiction series. Anything fiction, I write in that name. And anything nonfiction work, I write in Colleen J. Callaghan. And I'm a channel for the Daemon Michael, who is my guide, whom I have known since I was 5, been aware of his presence. And that has been the single most nourishing and important relationship of my life. And I have been over the last 14 years regarding myself as married to my guide and living as a more or less an anchorite, a monk, in dedication to that relationship and deepening it so that I could use it to be of service to them. And it's that same relationship through which I write fiction and nonfiction to reach a broader audience. With the fiction series, people who might read spiritually imbued erotic fantasy, but would never read self-help work, spiritual self-help work. And for the people who just want to go straight to the self-help work, my nonfiction works. So that's me in a nutshell.
Awesome. I'm so excited to have an opportunity to speak with you today because you're such a resonant soul and you have that demeanor of here it is, take it as it is, take it or leave it. This is me, right? And you write in that way. And I love those who write from that authentic place of being because you're saying this is me, take it or leave it, right? But
That's all I can do.
Yeah, and the book you wrote is called Rise in Lucidity and Master Anxiety. And I thought this was a fantastic book. I was telling my husband when I read the book that if I had to write a book, this is how it would be written. It's not complex. It's not complicated. And I told him I've struggled with the idea of even writing a book because I don't feel it's that complicated. I didn't feel I had enough material to make it into a book. But I love that you took those simple concepts and expounded on them in such a way as to make it digestible for any reader who might have encountered it. You took the complex, what people perceive as complex, and kind of brought it down to a way that it can meet people where they are. So I love this book, and I love that people will have an opportunity to learn a bit more about that material and about you in your journey as a writer and the way that you deliver your material, because across the board, you are one of those people, what you see is what you get. And I love that you give it to us in such a straightforward way. But before we get into talking about the book and the material, I'd love for you to share a little bit about your journey, because you have one of those fantastical stories that kind of set you up for being one who can really speak to this material as one who truly knows. So please share with us a little bit about your story.
Thank you for that. All of that, yeah. Very nourishing to my weary soul. Okay. I grew up back when blistering your child every day was not an uncommon thing. Wasn't considered child abuse. And I got a lot of blistering. I got a lot of emotional malparenting, even though my parents were very benevolent. They just didn't have a lot of great technique. And they were certainly dedicated. And I was exposed because of the mal technique to a pedophile in the extended family who abused both me and my little sister sexually. And the first time that happened in a way that changed anything, I was 5. And it was Easter time. And anyway, at that juncture, trying to escape him, I left my body and I discovered this benevolent presence in my heart mind space, in my awareness. And he was eternally loving, completely loving, ecstatic peace. That's hard to realize, but ecstatic peace, just this kind of effervescent being that is at once at peace in its own combustible nature, would descend upon me and did, and rested me right out of the body and into this wonderful experience. And this was the single most important thing that ever happened to me. The single biggest boon of my life came out of being sexually assaulted as a 5-year-old, because I discovered this presence and that I was not my body at the same time by going out of my body. So I began at a very early age to relate to myself as not this, I'm something more. Nor form cannot contain what I am, was an early revelation. So now Michael was with me. That's the daemon. Michael is my guide. He was with me a lot. I mean, constantly. I was aware of him a lot, but he was constantly with me. And so loving and rewarding was that relationship that I sought the witnessing of his presence and of his reinforcement that he would send to me through these massive chi flows, just energy rushing about my form, and ecstatic, again, that ecstatic peace. And I wanted that. And so I spent a lot of time alone talking to him. And I learned the things that I said. He would, when I was close to correct, he would hit me a shimmering of the chi flows. And if I was bang on correct, he would just whoosh me. So I was nearly knocked out of the tree. I spent most of my life up in trees looking down to watch people, because people rarely look up. And so I learned to climb in order to remain unseen and yet able to observe, to learn. Okay. So when I talked to him about what I saw, he would reinforce me appropriately. And if I got no chi flow, it was like playing Marco Polo with the daemon guide, right? I'd say, is it this? And if there was no shimmering, then I would No, it's not that. And if I got a shimmering, then I would go deeper into it, and I would feel into what was coming from my heart and speak it into words. Anyway, so this is a sort of summoning that I did naturally as a child, and it built our relationship. I grew to love him and to trust him above anybody in my life in the physical world. And every day I used to, in fact, climb into the trees in the summertime and sing to the sky, because it was so hot and I'm old as dirt and there was no air conditioning. And the only way in Florida I would get it to be able to sleep that night and for my family to sleep would be as if it rained and cooled things down. And so my duty, one of my priestly duties, as I considered it as a child, was to climb the trees and sing to the sky every day in the summer to try and induce it to rain. And I did this secretly. I mean, people heard me singing, they just didn't know why I was doing it. And so anyway, and then along the age of 15, I was watching my favorite news weathercaster, Roy Leap, explain the Bermuda High. And the Bermuda High was a weather pattern that delivered the summer storms to Tampa almost every day at 4 to 6 p.m. and cooled things down. And I thought, well, this had nothing to do with my singing whatsoever. And so I decided Michael was probably just an imaginary friend from my childhood, because it was so bad, my childhood, right? So I stopped listening to him. I told him to go away, that he wasn't real. Okay, just stop that. I'm putting away childish things now. You're not real. And so I kind of went way far off the path and started experimenting with all kinds of alcohol and drugs and doing rash things, because all the meaning had gone out of my life. And when you don't have any meaning, when life is meaningless, it's not worth living. And so I started taking a lot of chances, and such risk-taking behavior was how I ended up dead at the age of 20. I was rash and strong and really physically capable, very physical, athletic person. And I was astride this beautiful barrel mare, extremely, as a horse, very maneuverable and responsive to just the way, if you thought I'd like to turn left, somehow she knew and she turned left. She didn't have to do anything. And her name was Ticker, and I was astride Ticker chasing the stallion that I wanted to run down for my friend to ride. And he was like 17, a little over 17 hands. And I, being an idiot, thought I could chase him into the small paddock and catch him in there using Ticker, maneuver him in there, because I'd forgotten to bring the grain to lure him in. And so that small thing led to an interesting event cascade. Forgetting the grain, I ended up in the lustrous vast because I forgot the grain. So anyway, there's got to be some symbolism in that somewhere. Anyway, I forgot the grain. I lost the plot. I forgot the grain, the kernel of truth, and I ended up in the lustrous vast when the stallion kicked me right off the back of that horse. So in the lustrous vast, lo and behold, the recently relegated to imaginary status friend was there. And he gave me a revelation, a life review. And that life review contained the revelation of what I had been doing that was making me miserable. And I saw that we all do it. It's a very common thing. We are in identification with what we are not. And being in identification with what we are not, we are in the dream of the world, which is what I also saw. The world is just a dream to your eternal perspective. The world is just a dream. And so we're in the dream of the world without any lucidity. We, the eternal being, are identified with the character we play here. And we're disempowering our true nature to render the palette of our experience by naming things that happen for us as things that happen to us. And then we go ahead and we have a bad reaction to it, which is our own doing, and become unhappy, our own doing, And then we blame the world for doing it to us. And in this, we disempower ourselves and fall deeper into a dream of powerlessness. So seeing this, I realized that if people could just become lucid, because here's the thing, though, it's a tall order, because not only was I lucid, but lucid in a way, let me explain what that looks like. I was my eternal self, and I am nothing like this self, that eternal self. This isn't only a hint at what I am. I am like an incredibly powerful being. And the assignment, go back into the world and make it lucid so that everybody knows this, was not a big deal. Okay, to that being such a huge, what we would say from inside the venue, not a big deal. Inside the venue, we'd say, oh my God, that's crazy. She wants to save the whole world by waking us up to our lucidity. But who I was in the lustrous vast, I'm like this incredibly powerful being. And so I looked at it and said, yeah, definitely got to go back there and handle that situation. And so I rushed back in. And of course, nobody wants to listen. Because, not nobody, but a very few people, because it requires them to take responsibility for their subjective experience. So now, when I first got back into the venue, I started trying to tell, by the way, I raised myself from the dead. Nobody there put me back in my body. Nobody there revived me. Okay. When I came back into my body, the girl who was with me was just standing over me thinking I was dead and not knowing what to do. And my eyes just went open. In the lustrous vast, I asked Michael, it's just a dream. How do I get back into the dream? And he said, remember the last moment. He said, you can go back in any place you want. You can even go in before the accident happened and cause it to not happen, live the time stream differently. But if you do that, you won't remember what you just learned, so you can't give it to the world. So there's no point in going back. Okay. So at that point, I said, well, then how do I do it? He said, remember the last moment. If you want to take this memory back with you, you have to go into the last moment because it contains nested within it every antecedent condition that got you to that time, location, and space and time. And that event stream. Okay, because all the other event streams are existing in superposition in the lustrous vast. They're available to you. Okay, but to choose the one you just left, to pick up the thread, the dream where you left off, you have to remember the last moment and will yourself to be there. And I did that, and then there was this rushing of my being, which was like this is torrent of wind and will. Okay, and bam, I was back in the body, the eyes popped open, and I got up. It took 3 tries, her helping me to get up, because he had said to me, if you don't make the body stand, it will cease because the brain is swelling from the head trauma. So you have to make it stand up. So I got it to stand up. I needed help and it took 3 tries, but we got it to stand up. And I started trying to tell people as soon as I was I kept passing out for several hours, but I started trying to tell people right away in my life, and they all said the same thing, basically. Don't worry, it's just the brain damage. You'll get better. And so as I wanted a job, a career in science, I'd been an empiricist for 5 years, since the age of 15. I didn't want to talk about it until I could frame it in a way that the world would be, when it was ready for it, in the world's own conception of things. It's constantly morphing conception, its theory of everything, how things work. I wanted to start inserting it at the time that the world was ready, because clearly in 1978, the idea of superposition and all these event streams existing at the same time, et cetera, the world wasn't ready for that quantum. It just wasn't part of the zeitgeist yet. And so I felt silent for 45 years, wondering if I'd made a mistake.
That's beautiful. And it's so much in that story to unpack before we even get to the book stuff. Like there's so much in there. Like, because, people have such a fear of death. They think death is an end to all things. They live life in such a tentative way, afraid to live fully because they're afraid of what might happen. You know, death is such a fearful thing, and you kind of put out there that death is not the end, right? Like how paramount was that for your experience, for your shift, right?
I have to say this. I should have added this to begin with. Okay, I'm a very passionate person, and I've been wielding my will to summon outcomes all my life, vis-a-vis the talking to Michael and following the chi rushes to truth, right? Playing Marco Polo with my guide. At the age of 11, my first loved one died, my granddaddy. And in a mistake of interaction, my dad thought I was very short, so I couldn't get up to kiss him in the casket. And my dad thought I wanted to kiss him, and I did not want to kiss him. I most definitely did not want to kiss the corpse, because my whole being was screaming, it's a lie. It's a lie. And I have this thing about lies. I just can't abide them. And the first holy vow, even being raised as a Catholic and having had First Holy Communion and that whole deal, the first holy vow I made from my heart and my passion and my will with utter determination was that I would sweep from the world the visage of death, that I would conquer death, that it was a lie, and that I would expose it for the lie that it was. Okay, 10 years later, there I am in the lustrous vast, experiencing the lie that death is. And now, 45 years later, it's already been conquered in my experience. Death is, I'm kind of looking forward to the do-over, okay? But not until I've done what I came back to do. I mean, this is like my mission, and then I'm ready to leave. Well, I have to wait till all my animals die, because I'm not an abandoner, but I've got about another 10 years, and they'll all be, pretty much expired from natural attrition, right? Anyway, so I have conquered death for myself, and now I'm trying to do it for the world, because death is just what we who reckon ourselves the living call a corpse. Death is really ultimate salvation. I mean, if you can get your lucidity from it and stay in your lucidity when you enter any other venues, so that you don't come to fall into a deepening dream within a dream within a dream, because the truth is unity. The truth is the unity of source, okay? And source is dreaming the 10,000 things. And those 10,000 things imbued with source's life and ability to create for themselves are further dreaming dreams. And within those dreamers are dreaming dreams. And we have fallen into deepening identification in this world with something that can suffer loss and die. And you can't.
Right.
You can't.
Right. Wow. That's so beautifully stated and so absolutely true. It's just a transition of states is what death ultimately is. Yeah.
That's the fall.
Right. The other thing that you mentioned that I sought to highlight is that you had that communication with your guidance. So you had a protocol. Your ability to feel those chi flows was your way of knowing that you were being spoken to and guided by your guidance. And I think that's something people don't really realize, is that you can establish a protocol with how you receive information from your guides. For me, my body responds. So if I'm talking and I'm asking questions in the back of my mind, they're giving me responses, and my body will nod in response. My body responds to that. That's something you can establish. So I think that's so profound that you were able to recognize that at such an early age and learn to realize, surrender to that. Yeah.
This is really tough too, because now here I am at 45. My dad taught me to follow the voice of the guide. I mean, he taught me, and he wasn't he wasn't a religious man at all, but when I was about 10 years old, he shocked me by saying to me, "Little girl, you may not know it now, but there's a little voice inside your awareness. And you'll know the one I mean, because it tells you not to do what you want to do when you know you shouldn't do it." that little voice, if you will listen to it and follow it, will lead you on the path you came here to walk. It will lead you to your joy. Okay. And I was just like, shh, a porcupine with G flows as he said this to me. I'm just like, and he looks down at me and says, "Are you cold?" Because I'm like, the hair standing up all over my body and I'm shivering, with just this passion. And I did that. I'm like an old style Quaker. When the chi gets flowing, I just shivers and oh gosh, And I said, "No, I'm not cold. That's just what happens when the little voice wants me to listen to something somebody's saying to me. That's how he tells me I'm hearing something important." And he said, "Oh, you know the voice already?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I know the little voice you mean." Anyway, so yes, I had that, and we've established multiple protocols on how he communicates with me. I set it up. If this is what you want me to do, then give me this sign, or give me a sign. Amazing the things that I'll ask him to do that he does. Anyway, yes, we all have access to that too. We just have to learn to pay attention to that level of awareness in consciousness where our associations and self-talk and fears all exist simultaneously. And the guide will lift things to your awareness for you, like it's like leaf devils of associations are being stirred by the world around you all the time. And the guide is the gust that blew them up dancing. Okay. So that's available to us all. You just have to learn to believe in it and follow it, attend to it. That's it. Now, if you dedicate yourself to it, if you give yourself to it, if you get out of the way of your guide, who is your higher self, okay, and you will to be an instrument of that higher self, your relationship deepens with the guide, because they will not usurp your will. You are created with free will, just like your guide. And so you have to ask for power and for insight, and you have to then will to make that your purpose in the world.
Right. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, absolutely. The other thing, the other big thing, my guy's speaking right now.
I love that.
You experienced so much trauma at such an early age, but you've somehow at this point made peace with all of that. There are so many people who get stuck in those stories, attaching and identifying as the trauma and the suffering and everything that they experience. Is such a deep hole to attempt to dig oneself out of, that many people just kind of stay within that space. How have you made peace with everything that's happened in a way that you can now see it for what it truly is and move forward in a space where you're able to be a light and help others who may be experiencing the same thing, or may have experienced the same thing?
That's beautiful. Okay, the biggest strides I have made, and I have to say, I mean, without Michael, I would have probably continued to identify with the stories and the self-talk of victimhood and sadness and anger and wrath, because I had a lot of that. But it was what was modeled to me, and it is the natural first reaction to being injured. Fear begets wrath. And your wrath acted upon begets more fear, because you expect you deserve retribution for what you just did or said. And the thing becomes a cycle. The way I made my biggest strides, other than just constantly following Michael, trying to approach it gradually, but the really big stride came in just forgiving everybody all at once, myself included. You cannot forgive yourself if you're holding everybody else's feet to the fire. And you cannot forgive everybody else if you're holding your own feet to the fire. The trick is to forgive everyone all at once. Let everybody off the hook. Realize deeply, everybody always does the best they can at the time with the resources they have, the coping skills they have, the perspective they have. So if they're in deep identification with a dream of their mistreatment, they don't have the resources of a lucid individual who realizes they are not that story. They are the consciousness observing the story they've been telling themselves. When you observe yourself telling yourself that sad story, you have the power from that point of view, that identification as consciousness itself, conscious of itself. You have the power then from there to choose to feel otherwise. You don't have the power as long as you're identified with the sad story, the angry story. You don't have that power because you honestly believe you are that victim. But when you realize you're the consciousness who is, and this is again from my NDE, if you see a tribulation as an opportunity, if you see it as something that's there, as from my NDE, all challenges are opportunities, and they are given to make you lucid in the dream of the world, to make you realize yourself as consciousness, not as that suffering story. Each time you're suffering emotionally, you've lost your lucidity and fallen into identification with a dream character you're playing in the dream of the world. I'm no longer that magnificent being who was in the lustrous vast, committed to rushing back into Earth venue to wake everybody else up. Because how could I be happy in heaven without them? Okay, so that is key. Forgive everyone, realizing they're doing the best they can with the resources they have at the time. That what everyone is in their heart of hearts is love. That is all we are. We are love. Love is life, is source. They're all the same thing. Love, life, source, all like different aspects of the same thing, consciousness. Okay. Consciousness has what we perceive as separate things, but they're really different attributes of consciousness. Okay. So if you stay centered in what you really want, and what you really want is this beautiful expression of love as your experience, that you look at how you are at Christmas, how you want to give to the world to see the light in their eyes and the excitement of new life and believing with all your heart that everything is possible. Every good thing is possible. You know, put yourself back in that and realize that you not only want that for yourself, you want it for everybody. And from there, it's easy to let everybody off the hook and stay in that head-heart space of wanting to give to everyone, that benevolence space of you don't want to beat anybody. You don't want to best anybody. It's not a competition. Winning is about waking other people up, lucid in the dream of the world, so that they enjoy the same blessed reprieve from identification with some powerless character they've played in this world.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Every experience is designed to bring us into greater awareness of self and into the realization. Yeah.
Yes. And in that end, if it's achieved, any suffering is redeemed.
Right.
Okay. Because once you get there, you say, I was raped at the age of 5, and it was the most wonderful thing that happened in my entire life because it gave me Michael. I mean, everything is reframed from the boon rather than the tribulation. You say, what is the boon I got out of that? Okay. And this relationship with Michael has blessed me all my life. Interestingly enough, I haven't been able to mostly talk about it because the only one in my family who promoted it, who believed in it, was Dad. And everybody else has told me Michael isn't real and you shouldn't talk about him because people will merely think you're crazy. Okay. So now I'm like out of the closet big time. All right. You guys will have to call it as you see it. I can only deliver the message and hope it gives you freedom. And if you want to decide I'm just nuts, the door will still be open when you decide to walk through it.
That's beautiful. That's awesome. That's where many of us have gotten to, right? Is I don't care what anybody else thinks. This is who I am. Take it or leave it, right? This is the story. This is how it goes, right? This is my truth.
Initially I came back going, oh, I must accomplish. And when I first started, recently in the last year, trying to get the message really out there, really trying, I was like, I must. And then in the last few months, it's like become clear to me that all I came back to do is to deliver the message, to insert it into the venue. Okay. And it takes time because honestly, this is 7th frequency information. This is 7th frequency perspective. All right. We're all talking about the 5th frequency and getting there. And this is aiming at the 7th frequency and coming out of the 7th frequency. Okay. Of ascension, of spiritual ascension. So it's a bit ahead of its time. And I'm seeing it begin to show up out there. I'm seeing it start to come back with not as quite a deep, uncompromising perspective as I take on the principles. I follow them to their logical consequences that seem pretty outlandish to people sometimes. Okay, you are God, being one of them. You're just dreaming. Wake up. Shake the kid. Wake up. I insert the information, the guides will deliver it thereafter to the eyes and ears ready that are prepared to hear. And Michael says to me, them who cannot hear have to feel. They get to suffer some more. So there's 2 ways to do this to come to lucidity. One is suffering, and the other one is imagifesting. And imagifesting is you, lucid in the dream of the world, realizing that you can control your self-talk to create for yourself the subjective, to curate for yourself your subjective experience. So the guides will take care of it after that. I'm just delivering it over and over again, lots of different places, and then the guides will take care of it.
Right. So this is what I was. You actually set this up perfectly because I was going to ask, when you fell off that horse and you came back, your mindset was that I need to go in and I got to wake everybody up. It's my job to now wake everybody up. I got to save the world, right? That was the mindset. And many light workers come in and you wake up and you like that's the first thing you think is that it's your job to now save everybody. But talk about how you have to eventually reconcile that in the fact that realizing that you have no control over anybody else, you can only control yourself or do what you feel inspired to do. And in that is the thing that eventually wakes everybody up or wakes the people up around you.
To the person I was in the lustrous vast, not person, being. Not a big deal, save the world. Just going to do it this afternoon, and then I'm going to go to the park later. Take a dip in the eternal waters. It's not a big deal. And so then, and we're motivated by this profound love, this boundless love that we are. I mean, this love is so big that at first you perceive it and then it comes over you and you are it. It transforms you because that's what you always were. Everything else that you thought you were falls away. When your lucidity is complete in the lustrous vast, or quantum eminence, as Michael calls it, okay? All of your misidentifications fall away. Those misidentifications falling away, all that's left is the truth, and the truth is love. So you naturally want to give it to everybody. We all feel that way, That's why the newly reborn just seem to glow and they want to proselytize everyone. I mean, the experience they're having is real. Okay. The words coming out of their mouth that are associated with the way they've been indoctrinated, well, probably not useful to as many people as they'd hope, because they're not based on anything you can really wrap yourself around and take power over. In fact, most times religious dogma is outsourcing your power to something outside of you that you have to pray to or attract into your life. Okay. Even spirituality, law of attraction. Okay. Doesn't exist. Okay. So, and we'll talk about that if you'd like later. So you come back into the venue, or you come back into reorientation. I've had many ecstasies and reawakenings in my life, many, when I would be lifted up into that newly reborn state and want to give it to everybody. Even as a youngster, before the horse kicked me, following the daemon Michael, his chi flows just raise your frequency, so you just become more and more aflame with this love, you know. And my sister used to tell me, man, you are terribly uncool, because I just loved everybody. I love you. Did you know it? Come here. Just have I told you how much I love you? You know. Anyway, so, and people were like, yeah, okay, thanks, Colleen. Appreciate that. You know. That's really good. Pass the joint, would you? I think you've had enough, Colleen. Give me that. Anyway, and that hurts. You know, that nobody gets it. And it hurts and it hurts and it hurts over and over and over again. And my little sister, and by the world just kind of wears it out of you. If you keep trying to give it to people who aren't ready for it, it just sucks the love out of you, you know, and just, here you're careening back to earth, fiery, your wings ablaze because you flew too close to the sun, right? So about the age of 17, my little sister, she was 17, I was 19, looks at me. She's had her first big experience with spirit. And she's born anew. And it wasn't through any witnessing or biblical anything. She just had an encounter with spirit, a near-death thing, sort of quasi near-death thing, because she overdosed herself. And not intentionally, just having entirely too much fun. And an angel came and talked to her, or she said God talked to her through the angel. And she was in his love. She was in the love of this presence. Okay, when she said to me, I have to tell you, I had this experience. Oh my God, you must feel like this all the time. This is why you're so weird. This is why this is why nobody gets you. You're just so full of love all the time. You're trying to give it to everybody. I'm so sorry. I never listened to you before. You know, somebody finally echoes it back to me. And at that juncture, I was not in the position to reflect it back to her, because I had recently been attacked, physically attacked a few days before, and I was still caught up in the fear vibe, PTSD restimulated, and so I couldn't echo back to her. And I said to her, Cindy, I know exactly where you are. I know exactly what you're feeling. Don't try to give it to anybody. They will steal it from you. They will ridicule you. Your love will flow into them and disappear. They will not echo it back. Keep it with yourself and the angel who spoke to you. Keep it between you two. It's sacred. And the angel will keep building it in you. If you come to the angel for it and with it, the angel will build it. And when somebody turns it away in the world, go back to the angel for more of it. Don't let it go. Okay? Over the next few months, I watched the world rob all of that from her again. And she fell right back into the tears and her unhappy dream, because she too had been sexually abused by our granduncle. And she did not have a good self-concept, you know, because our society, thank you very much, teaches little girls that unless they're pure, they're not fit to be the princess. They're not fit to be the prince's bride unless they're pure. And she was damaged goods. Okay, and so was I. And I labor still under that because it's still in society and rearing its ugly head again that defines women as nothing, not anything more important than a vessel to carry a man's babies. That's it. That's all she's good for. And if she's not fit for that, she's not fit. God forbid you be barren. You're useless. You're no good to any man. That is rearing its head again in our society. It has been there subtly all along, and now that ugly thinking is coming right out in the open. You see it in many places on the internet. Men, typically, who talk that way about women and infect the collective consciousness with terribly demeaning, degrading ideas about women. So what you have to do when you're awake in a dream venue like this and nobody else, if I could make them lucid, they'd fly. Spiritually, they'd rise. That's all I have to do is make them lucid and they'll rise. But nobody here is lucid, so they're certainly not flying. Most people, metaphorically speaking, they're not flying. So what I can do, because I can't give people an experience if they're unwilling of their true self. And people don't want to release their victim identity. They don't want to release the justification of their grievances because their idea of justice is vengeance. And the true justice is forgiveness that sees it. Nobody did anything to anybody. This is a dream. We're doing this for the sake of waking up. And once everybody wakes up, all that suffering stops. And we'll all just lift off together. Okay? Metaphorically speaking. So you just resolve that there's only so much you can do, even when you're remembering yourself as this heroic being you are in eternal paradigm, in your eternal context of functioning. You realize that here, the ideas of the many infect the consciousness with the limitations that we experience in this venue. And that's important because if more people believed less in the limitations, the venue would begin to change its physics so that things would materialize and manifest much more quickly because we realize our benevolence is perfected enough that we're safe to access that power. Okay. And mostly you just have to work within people's ideas of themselves to point at another way of perceiving themselves. So one of the things I try to do with my work that you mentioned earlier to make it accessible to people is to just show them instances of how they are creating their subjective experience unconsciously. And telling them you're going to create because you're a godling. You cannot not create. Now, the question is, are you going to create unconsciously what you dread? Or are you going to create consciously what you will and desire? Okay, so if I can teach them that, then they can experience their own power, actually see it happening, feel it happening. And that may be enough to waken them just a little bit. So I put my 2 cents in here now, and I've come, I'm leaving it in written form. I'm leaving it in these electronic videos. I talk to people everywhere I go about it. Constantly trying to reorient people out of the dream, out of identification with the dream character. And when I'm done, I'm done. And when I die or quit the venue, and I have my own ideas about how I'd like that to happen. Seems to be in the working. Let's see how it turns out. I get to go to other worlds, other venues, which I have already manifested as the being I was in the lustrous vast, as the being I am in eternity. I have already made other worlds. I have many friends in many other worlds. I get to go be with them. So I do my work here. I'm a short timer at 65. Okay, I do my work here and then I get to go. I get to die. I fly away. And that's a really good thing.
That's nice. You know, I had a great teacher. Michael Tamura was a great spiritual teacher, and he was the one who kind of woke me up to the fact that it's not your responsibility to save, to make people change. You have to settle into what you are here to do and allow that to be what invokes the change, or what sparks the change, that authentic essence of you, that inspiration that comes forth. Your creations, they are the thing that will spark the change. Your authenticity is what creates the safety for the people around you to walk into that change as they so choose it. But it's not your job to make them get it. And when I got that concept, it was like a weight I took off of myself. Like I literally liberated myself to move forward. And I was able to sit back and watch people play these roles. I could sit back and see the role being played, but be able to distinguish between the role and the divine essence of that being, right? And so from that space, you can kind of take your hands off and say, okay, everybody's sovereign. Everybody's doing it the way they need to do it to come into awareness of themselves. And so, yeah, I think that
I love that
creates a sense of peace.
I've given up on talking to people who are really, really deeply identified with their grievances. I don't talk to them face to face using words. What I do is I imagifest, which is a meditation. I imagifest being with them in one of the perfect worlds I have created. I have imagifested elsewhere in the astral realms. And I go out of my way, Jesus advised us to do something very similar, to take people who offend my sensibilities, people who really bother me, and to imagifest them with me in this perfect place that I have the instinct to keep to myself. Okay, I made this place, it's perfect. Why would I let in somebody who, okay, ... who, ... all right. Because if I bring them there in spirit and speak to them from my heart, I am speaking to their spirit. I don't have to speak to them in person to register a change. Nothing happens in the world out there that does not happen first in spirit. Okay. You cannot rest with arms of flesh, imaginary arms of flesh, joy or outcomes from a world that you merely think is outside of you. It's a projection of what's going on inside of you. You are manifesting your experience. And you're kind of holding people that you don't like hostage to who they've been. You're not giving them a chance to be a better version of themselves if you're not willing to take them into your most sacred happy space and love them and talk to them in spirit, because their spirit is perfect, just as you are. You can get more results by going in your manifested happiest place, taking them into that sanctuary and talking to them, talking to their heart from your heart. And manifest it going beautifully. It won't be difficult. I promise you that. You can experience the conversation going in a way where both parties come into an experience of their love, the truth of their real reality. And I believe that's the way to make a difference in the world. And also not just canceling people, just because they don't, that's just because they're not saying the words and espousing the principles that you are in identification with. And even if you believe that those principles would make them much happier, their will is sacred. And you are enjoined from trying to force anybody to do or feel anything. Your benevolence, the degree of your benevolence is really rests on the level of your willingness to allow other people to have their experiences while you stand in the doorway to salvation saying, the way out is in and you are the portal. Stop doing that to yourself, right? So that's kind of my job. When people come to me for help, I reorient them to their lucidity. And when they present in my time stream, crossing my path, if there's a problem and I get a prompting, I feel like maybe I could drop a word of comfort or something that would reorient them a little bit. I do that. And then I let it go and I bless it. I bless it, that it will bear fruit. I plant that seed. And then I have faith that it will bear fruit at the appropriate time.
Yeah.
Because it's not all my work. I'm just like a finger on the hand of God.
Yeah.
Poking people.
This goes to the power of what you just said, because you said you bring them into your sacred space. That speaks to one of the points you highlight in the book, that there is no world out there because there is no out, right? It's all consciousness. And so you essentially, when you meet things that trigger you or those things that upset you or don't really resonate with you, you are really connecting with aspects of yourself. So in bringing someone into your sacred space, you are acknowledging that that's an aspect of you that you need to see, that you designed to bring yourself into awareness of, so that you can see and reconcile that aspect of you, to see it in its truth, so that you can allow it to then dissolve. And then from that perspective, it's no need to focus on fixing people. Like, you're not necessarily fixing people. You are really
me.
Yes, right?
Fixing me.
Yeah. The world, I had a friend who helped me see that. And the way that she did that, it wasn't by teaching, it wasn't by being very dogmatic. It was really just sharing her stories and her experiences. And she got me to a place where I could see that the world is just mirroring me back at me. And so now I have this thing, I call it the collective mirror, because every encounter you have is just you being reflected back at you. And how much power is it in that? Because in that realization, do you really tap into and accept how much power you have to change the external world? Because as you change the internal world, do you change the external world? Because you are projecting the reality that you experience. That's such a powerful thing to wrap your mind around, right?
Yeah. Recently, I actually decided, okay, he just said something to me. Recently, I try to be precise with my words. Recently, he showed me something that caused me to recommit to a different type of perception. And the thing he showed me, I've been wrestling with health conditions that are scary. And that kind of takes the edge off of my shine, and I don't experience the world as every good thing can happen miraculous place when I'm in that headspace. And recently I was out in my sister's backyard garden, and it's quite lovely. And there were tubular bells, wind chimes, and I just had this sudden moment of intense presence as this butterfly went flitting by, bathed in a shaft of sunlight coming through the trees. And I saw the motes in the air like little fairies. And just everything was sparkling for a moment. It's like she showed me the forgiven world because I lifted myself out of all of that scary self-talk and worry. And that fell away, revealing wonder of a child, the wonder of a child. He's done that to me too another time fairly recently. He's been doing this a lot to me actually lately, like he's trying to spark it in me again. I went outside at night and the katydids were singing. I don't know if you know, katydids are a group of insects in one tree and another group of the same insects in another tree, and they'll argue. This group will say, Katy did. That's what it sounds like they're saying. Katy did, Katy did. And this one over here will say, Katy didn't, Katy didn't. So it's Katy did, Katy didn't, Katy did, Katy didn't. It's back and forth, okay? And I went outside, it's a really loud thing going on. And I went outside and this was happening. Katy did, Katy didn't, Katy did, Katy didn't. And I loved it. It's so Florida, you know? And then there were the tree frogs, you know, in my garden. And behind it all, in the background, I heard something I had not heard in decades since I was a child. And it was a whippoorwill. And I said, what? Whippoorwill. Do you know the call of the whippoorwill? Oh my God. You see, they're almost gone. The whippoorwills. They were very common when I was young. And it's a bird that says, whippoorwill in the darkness, whippoorwill. And I'm listening to the katydids and the frogs and the whippoorwill. And suddenly I was a child again. And everything was wonder. And every good thing could happen because the whippoorwills that I thought were gone were not gone. In that moment, the whippoorwills were back and I was a child again, wondering if they'd been there all along and I had just been deaf to them. Okay. So like seeing the butterfly in the shaft of sunlight and suddenly I see the world in a different way, right? Enchantment is, wonder is all over again. It's 65. That is a very precious experience. And so I've been revisiting it. He's been reminding me of it with these little instances, these kind of holy instances in which I forgive the world of all of my troubles and let them fall away. And I just see the wonder, you know, and I'm seeking it now actively. I'm seeking the miracle showing itself and people get gratitude wrong. All right. Let me talk to you for a moment about gratitude. Imagine you're the maker of this venue, and you've gone to all this bother to create this incredibly gorgeous place. And people don't stop to enjoy it. They don't stop to marvel. They don't stop to wonder, to be in wonder, to experience the simple magnificence of this living artistry. When you do that, that is gratitude. You are acknowledging what has been done for you. It's not just saying, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for that. It is the experiencing of this marvelous work and appreciating what has been done for us. Because somebody built this venue, just like I've built venues. Somebody took their imagination and invested huge amounts of energy to make this for us to jointly enjoy. And instead of enjoying it and making it a better place, we've developed this society that has all these crazy ideas about what is worthy and what is good and what makes you cool. And we're not truly grateful anymore because our minds are constantly cast into how to get the next thing, that new iPhone or a car or whatever. Okay, that's where we are. You don't say I'm grateful for my new car and figure you've done it. That's it. My gratitude's done. I got it. I'm happy. No. Enjoy what has been made for you here. That is true gratitude.
Yeah. That's beautiful. And it's such a valid point. I didn't step into that space until I really allowed myself to begin to connect with nature. I didn't grow up as a child being one who wanted to be outside, right? I didn't step into that space until I got older. And really, since I moved to Florida, really is when I've really started to get outside and really connect, not just connect, but commune. It started at the end of being in Minnesota because I started going outside to meditate. So when I started to go outside and meditate, sitting in a field, then I started to feel and I started to hear everything. And so since I've moved here to Florida, it's been like I've been communing with the land itself. And what I noticed is the land will come up and meet me. So I can feel energy and I can feel these streams of energy rising up out of the ground. And I can feel myself being the bridge between heaven and earth, making connections, connecting these streams of energy that all of a sudden started to happen. And it's like magical because when they are connected, I just feel this rush of energy, and I'm putting myself in communion. And something, when I started to do that, I started with Qigong, and that kind of evolved into me moving the energy in this way. But when I started to do that, something has shifted in me since, and I've stepped into a completely different space of being, right? Completely different space. And that gratitude is very real because it becomes something that you don't say. It just becomes this way of being. You are living gratitude in communion with all that is, allowing yourself to be one with all that is, recognizing that you are one that with all that is. There is no separation. You are part of it. Like it is part of you and you are part of it. You are like these physical bodies are earth, right?
That's right.
We are earth. And so you have to at some point make a connection, or I will say it's beneficial because you can do it to choose, but it's beneficial. It's so priceless to step into that space of communion with all that is. And that's not just with earth, but that's with people as well, because it works the same. We're all one. It's all one thing. Yeah.
I had a lucid dream a few weeks ago. I wrote about it on Facebook. I think you saw the post too. And in this lucid dream, I came lucid, hearing this voice of the daemon guide saying, to heal the earth, restore the grail. And I, in the dream, was like this leader of a group of knights who had sent the knights out to find the grail. Okay, they were out there looking for the grail. And the daemon said to me, they're all out there, and the daemon says this to me, to heal the earth, restore the grail. And at that moment, I came lucid and I realized that everything our first instinct in hearing something like that is to interpret the words and the mundane meaning of them and to rush out to do something with the arms of flesh. Okay. And that is the way we are programmed to respond to things, is to go try and act them out in flesh. Even when we hear them from spirit, we still right away go, oh, I'm doing that wrong. Okay, I'll go make changes in the world. Okay. And all the changes really happen inside first. All the changes happen in spirit. And so suddenly I realized a new meaning of the words, spiritual meaning of the words, to heal the earth, restore the grail. The earth is the body. Okay. To heal your body, and I was struggling with health issues, he says to me, to heal the body, restore the grail. The grail is the life, the incarnation, the vessel and the will together. Okay. And I am that. I am the vessel and the will in earth. So when he says to me, to heal the earth, restore the grail, he's saying, to heal your body, give yourself back to your higher self. Restore to me my grail, which I put into the world. I got you into the world. You are my spirit extended. So get out of my way. All right, because I got things to do And as long as you are hijacking this incarnation, as he calls it, for your own earthly ends, your own earthly rewards, not only will you not get those earthly rewards, it doesn't work that way. You have to take your treasure built up in spirit instead of in the world venue. Okay. So stop trying to achieve things with the arms of flesh in the world that are your agenda. Get out of my way and give back to me power over your life and in your life so that I can make it turn out the way you came here to make it turn out. I have the bigger high chair. I have a bigger view. I can see further. I know what you need, is what he's saying with that. So yeah, that was and I woke up really on fire from that insight. It's like, bing, it woke me right up in the world. And I was like, oh my God, that's really great. I have, yes. And we all do that. We all go straight to the earthly, the mundane interpretation of the words because we're disoriented. You know, it's not that anybody steals your memories of your past lives or who you are in your higher context. Nobody takes that from you. Everybody likes to think because we're in victim mentality, they did this to me so I wouldn't access my power. No, okay, no. I mean, what happened was you were born a baby and you remembered everything. And then the world piled story upon story upon story upon story and attribution and framing and all of this stuff on top of your basic first identity, your prime self, who you are in your perfection. And so you've fallen slowly into dreams of identification with all of that stuff. All of your memories of who you are in reality are still there. You just can't retrieve them. You can't retrieve them because the brain, the way it works, and that's how we interact with this venue. The brain is like a forest of neural connections, a jungle. And when you keep rehearsing the same neural connections, you trample down pathways that are paths of least resistance for interpretation, for understanding, for experience. Okay, so if you're habitually trampling down these destructive pathways and tunneling thereby into an experience, a dream of your disempowerment, that is what comes natural to you, and you have to retrain by consciously regrowing new pathways through the jungle, new neural connections. Okay, so it's something you cannot not create. You are a godling. God made nothing imperfect about you. You have all the same powers. That's why you're here, where things materialize slowly, because otherwise, if you were ever getting everything you rashly uttered or thought instantaneously, it would be an absolute nightmare. Okay, so this venue is designed to protect you from your rash utterances and thoughts. And as you perfect your benevolence, you're creating unconsciously now what you dread, but as you perfect your benevolence and by your will and directed attention, keep yourself in a mind space and a heart space of love, acceptance, forgiveness, and appreciation of wonder and what's been made for us here, you then begin to create consciously by your will what you desire. And that's, in the end, what we're here to learn to do, because you don't need a venue that protects you from yourself when there is nothing about you that wants to harm anyone, including yourself.
Yes, that's absolutely it. You mentioned so many things in that, and what stuck out for me was my own story that connected with that. Was that when I was having a health issue in the very beginning when I first got married, we couldn't get pregnant. Like I had some issues going on, and I was having this battle, mentally thinking that I needed to go the path that the doctors were telling me, but somewhere in the back of my mind, it's like, no, that's not the path that you need to take. You need to take. And so there was this conflict in me about which route to go, right? Which route to go. But there was this knowing that I had to settle into what was being given from my guides, like that voice that I kept hearing, and I had to negate what the doctors were saying. So at some point I said, okay, forget it. I'm going to listen but you got to show me how to get out of your way. How to get out of my own way. Tell me, what do I need to do to get out of the way so that this healing can come? Because I believe that healing is possible. I believe all of those things. Show me how to get out of my own way. And at that point, did I start to wake up into different things? Things started, my awareness shifted, and I started to be aware of different things coming my way, different natural ways of healing myself. But I think it came with becoming aware, that spark of awareness that says that there has to be a better way, a different way, a different way.
Yes.
Show me how to get out of my own way.
That spark, the little voice, as Daddy called it, the little voice is little because it does not will to usurp your will. And so it is not imposing. The only time you're going to hear from your guide a big booming no is if your life is in danger. All right. And it's not time. If you're about to do something that's going to endanger your life or take it down a path that you really you didn't come here for, you might get a big booming no. You might freeze up and be unable to move. That has happened to me before. And similarly, when several times when I've been being physically assaulted and was trying to give the individual the benefit of the doubt, Michael took over literally and made my body react in ways that were stunningly efficacious in defending the body. And I was functionally gone and unaware and came back to myself after just a couple of seconds, and whomever the attacker was pretty seriously devastated. So, and I'm like with throbbing fists saying, I did that, ow. I have no memory of doing this, but I mean, the guide can intercede quite physically if need be, but it's not their style, man, because they don't want to usurp your will. And so they whisper very softly, that tiny voice in the back of your awareness where you think, I got this feeling, I just got this feeling that the doctors are all wrong and they're sending me down a well-intended road that won't work. Okay. And no, it won't work because they're working on the physical to change what is a spiritual problem. And if you address it at the spiritual level, it would naturally be reflected in the physical. Okay. The medical model is materialistic model. The materialism says that you can fix something with the arms of flesh, but there is no world out there. So any change actually happens because that drug, placebo, and whatever, you give it permission to heal you. You say, this is sufficient. And then it is reflected in a physical change because you believed in it. Without your belief, it would not work. So if you follow that inner voice, though, it will teach you to trust. And that's kind of the next stage. At first, it teaches you to hear it, then it teaches you to listen, and then it teaches you that's discernment, and then it teaches you to trust it. And faith is replaced by knowing. Okay, you have no doubt that, let's just put it this way, nothing out there in the world has ever given you peace or happiness, but that inner guide has.
Yes, nice. One of the things you talk about in the book is your desire versus holy will. The quote that you have is, the will that is not holy is not the will. What does that mean?
Okay, this comes from my NDE. The will that is holy because it is wholly shared with all creation, by all creation. All creation, and all creation wills to waken within the dream of the worlds, lucid and knowing its own godly estate. It is the realization of your ability to do all things as the godling that you are. That is the holy will. The holy will is that you reach an experience an abiding experience of your godly state. Okay? That you realize all the power. And the way you get there is through your benevolence and through consciously wielding your holy will. The holy will that you wield is in concert with the will that is holy. So when you ask, or when I say you will, that something be a certain way in your experience and in physicality, you are willing it with true goodwill to all beings and to the detriment of no one. You cannot will yourself to prosper at the expense of another. You cannot will yourself to pleasure at the displeasure of another. Okay, so the will that is holy is the will. The will that is not is the true will. It is the will you share with God. It is the will. Okay, everything else is just a dream. Inside venues where you think you need this or that to be happy, those are desires. Okay, so you can have your desires provided they are in concert with the will that is holy. And the more benevolence and love you're wishing it not for just yourself, but for everyone, to be good for everyone, the earth venue actually bends its physics and probabilities to cause it to come into being, because it is in keeping with the will that is holy, which is the will.
This is a concept. It sounds to me like soul alignment, like this is what soul alignment is. And there's a wonderful author, Frances Key, who wrote the Team books, and she mentioned that we have to get to a point where we level set the what do I want to say? The perception of who's in charge. Because the identity thinks it's in charge, right? But really it's the soul that's guiding the ship, or who should be guiding the ship. But the identity,
Restore the grail.
It's the ego who kind of takes the lead, but it's bringing those two back into proper alignment, where the soul is leading and the identity is surrendered to the desires of the soul. Now, how would you say, or in your perception, in your world, in your observation, how do you see one bringing the self back into alignment with the soul being the captain and the identity surrendering to that captain of the ship?
I'd say the fastest, easiest way to do it is to let everybody off the hook all at once, simultaneously, okay? Because the only thing that's keeping it from happening already, that alignment, is your awareness of who you think you are. So because you're in identification with all these little struggles in the earth venue, they get in the way of your experience of the will that is actually yours, the will that you came here for. Nobody crammed you into this venue against your will. I rushed like an idiot back in. Okay? Okay? Big aspirations. All right, so nobody's forcing you into here. You came here to do the holy will because you share it, okay? You just got caught up in the dream and you've lost your identification with the self that has that will. So to experience that self, you have to forget the self you think you are in the venue. The easiest way to do that is to forget all your grievances. Okay, because it's the stories that keep you tied to that identity. So if you forget all the grievances, you easily remember love. In fact, you can't forget all the grievances until you're in a state of love. So occupy your heart space, knowing that the will that you have for yourself is the will you actually have for everybody. You want everyone to be in heaven with you. You want everyone to be in paradise. You want here to be a paradise. You want us to share this paradise. That is what you really want. underneath all of the stories and bad dreams you've talked yourself into identification with is the truth. And the truth is love. So the easiest way to do it is to abandon all the stories, abandon the negative self-talk. Every time you witness a grievance, set it aside intentionally, consciously by your will. Set it aside and will to love instead. I do it symbolically by taking people into my sacred space. When they get up my nose, a person who gets up my nose and offends me more and more, they're going into my sacred space with me, and we sit on the beach, have a little chat.
Nice. Come on over here. Let's have a talk in my sacred space, right? Yeah.
Come on over here. Don't you just love this beach? Is this not the best beach you've ever seen in your life? Look at that sky. Look at that water. I bet you're wondering why I invited you here.
Nice. That's so nice. So nice. So beautiful. So many profound things we've touched on in this conversation. It's all kind of like I'm trying to wrap my mind around it because we touched on quite a few things, but at the core of it is that we hold so much power over our experience. We have the ability to dictate our experience and not be hostage to the world that we've created, right? There's a point in the book where you mention being hostage of the world that you made, right? And then blaming that on somebody, blaming that on somebody else, right? That self-inflicted suffering. Yeah.
Blaming the world you made for your suffering and thereby disempowering yourself. You say, it's not my fault, it's the world that did it to me. Instead of, wait a minute, I created this in a bad dream somewhere and I can lucidly create myself back out of it by reframing it consciously. By looking for the pony, I'm going to use my farmer's analogy. It's old to you by now. I know you've heard it. Okay. A backyard of your life full of horse poo is a sure sign of ponies. But you don't hear people saying, oh my God, there must be ponies everywhere. You hear them going, look at all that shit. All right. So train yourself to look for ponies and to expect ponies. The ponies are the blessings. To further my metaphor, you're never going to find a pony if your eyes are downcast because you're worried about stepping in a little poo. Okay. But if you keep your eyes up, looking at the horizon for the ponies, you might catch one. And if you catch one, you can ride it right out of the poo to a new level of perception. Okay. That's how it works. You want to graduate, you graduate by finding the ponies. So first you train yourself to, by your will, consciously look for ponies. You don't see challenges even anymore. You see opportunities. The moment you go, oh my God, something horrible has happened, you go, bing, lucid. I have talked myself into a sad dream. Any strong, unpleasant emotion becomes a token. And, when you're a lucid dreamer, you have tokens that you take into the dream with you to alert you that you've lost your lucidity. Things that make you go, aha, yeah, I know that from another venue. Yeah, and so you get a cross-venue context, a broadening of, it's like flying for me. When I wake up lucid in a dream, it's because usually I'm flying and I go, oh, I can't do this in my real life. Okay, and so I become lucid. I remember this life from inside a dream, just like I remember dreams from inside this life. And that's all lucidity is. But it grows your context of who you are. Now you include multiple dream venues. Okay. So we do the same thing here. We say, aha, my token is suffering. My token is sad self-talk, scary self-talk, strong emotions. All of those things alert me that I have fallen into identification with the sad talk, the self-talk, that created that experience. Okay, so I go, bam, I've lost lucidity. How do you You don't know you're unconscious until you've been unconscious until you're lucid again. That's the way it works. You go, oh, I drifted off there. I'm back now. Okay. And it happens over and over and over again. And pretty soon you find yourself, it happens, you have more lucid dreams when you're doing it in the dream of the world. You have more lucid sleeping dreams. Okay. Because you're naturally carrying that lucidity into other realms. I mean, don't consider your dreams any different than what seems to be dreams outside you or bigger context you imagine the eternal to be. It's not out there, it's in here. You are it. You are it. You're the portal, you're the magic, you are all of it, you are God. You're God having a dream of being whatever you've named yourself here.
Yes. Yes. You know, I was going to ask you, like one of my last questions to ask was, what does it truly mean to awaken? But I feel like you just nailed it. Like all of that is really it, what it means to really awaken and become lucid within this illusion, within this dream. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Observe, if there's one thing I could say that'll lead to it naturally, even if you don't take the other measures suggested in the book, which will accelerate the rate at which you become more perennially lucid in the dream of the world. Observe yourself being the observer. Be mindful. Say, here I am observing my self-talk. Say that. Here I am observing my self-talk. You do it now sometimes. Here I am driving down the road on a beautiful day. Here I am being pregnant. Here I am being a mother. Here I am. You have these moments of intense presence where everything feels kind of dreamlike. Okay. So do that intentionally. Bring yourself into, here I am observing my self-talk. And I see myself sad. I see myself angry. I see myself offended. And I see the self-talk that created those emotions. I am the common denominator. I am not my self-talk. I am not my thoughts. I am not my mind that has presently been attacking my peace, pretending to be me, the consciousness who is its supervisor. Supervise your mind. Yeah. It is a teething puppy that will tear everything in your life to shreds without a loving master to give it helpful things to chew on. Situations you want to solve, loving self-talk. Train your teething puppy mind to do loving self-talk, to do self-talk every time you catch yourself. Don't get mad with your puppy for doing what it's been trained to do, put other people down to make itself feel stronger. Don't get mad at the puppy, the mind. Just say, no, that's not true, and it's not helpful. From the position of consciousness, you've really gone out of your mind. You're not in identification with it. You didn't lose it. You didn't lose your mind. You know right where you chose to step out of it. Okay, and say, I'm in charge. I'm the consciousness. You are my tool. And you're not serving me. We're going to change that. All right? Because that's okay. And do it out of love. Don't discipline yourself harshly. Don't discipline your mind harshly. You can't get healed, happier, better by being unkind to yourself or anyone else. So love yourself right back into lucidity. And try and love others back into lucidity.
Yeah. Beautiful.
It's the best shot you got, in my opinion.
So one of the last question. Many people will say, well, how do I know what's true and what's not? How do I know what to believe and what not to believe as this life thing, this life experience unfolds? In the book, you mentioned you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free. How will one recognize, how does one recognize the truth? Because truth can really be so subjective between all of us, right?
Yeah. And what you're asking me says to me, you have interpreted those words, you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free in the mundane fashion. Okay. The mundane fashion. Because what the truth is the truth of what you are.
Yes.
And when you know what you are, everything else falls into alignment. Everything else is revealed in its relative level of actual importance. Nothing is as important as you, the consciousness, conscious of itself as consciousness, not as some sad, scary, angry self-talk. That is the truth you know that sets you free. It's not, is this or that right or correct? You will know from being the truth itself, by being aware of yourself as the truth that you are, consciousness itself, conscious of itself. You'll know which way to go. That still small voice is not so small anymore because you have gotten out of the way of your higher self. You have set aside identification with all that ego hurt self-talk. And by ego, it's not a thing. It's a concept. It doesn't even exist. It's like the law of attraction. Doesn't exist. You're actively projecting. You're not attracting anything to come to you. You're creating it as your experience. So ego is something we have created. We all think of it as alive and having life of it. It's not. We're identified with the mind. And so we observe the mind working and we call it the ego. And then we act like it's a separate thing apart from us that has a will and agenda of its own. We can only do that because we identify as our mind. And so we mistake the mind for a real thing. Okay. All right. That can have an agenda. The mind is a tool. Okay. And it's a joint workspace. It's like a shared desktop. Okay. That we all have access to the innerverse through consciousness turned back to regard itself. Just turning your attention on yourself reveals quickly what you are. So abide in that awareness as consciousness. That is the truth that sets you free. And do it constantly as you can. Make it more and more a practice. This is not just mindfulness. This is mindfulness is a door to it. Okay, it's a door to it, but it's a process of refinement. So you do it more and more consistently, and you come into alignment with it and identification as it, not with it, as it. Okay, and so the ability to witness yourself talking destructively to yourself and to suddenly say, something that's an age-old, you've had it for years and years, trauma that you've been carrying around from that state of being consciousness, you can observe that self-talk hurting you and just turn it off. Because it's not true and it's not helping you. And as consciousness, you kind of laugh that you did that to yourself. It kind of tickles when you pull that thorn out of yourself and throw it away. It's quite a lovely relief. And you do that over and over again for yourself. Right. And then that is the truth that you know that makes you free. Nice. The truth of what you are.
Nice. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. That one set home for me.
Thank you.
That one seated home. Yeah. Well, I wanted to pull out one thing just to clarify. You say, from your perspective, there is no such thing as the law of attraction, and that is because we are creating in the moment. Is that how you see that? Yeah.
On the fly. That's what I saw in the lustrous past. Quantum eminence, the NDE, was that we are creating jointly, all of us, the world together, what we as a community globally believe is possible is the limits of what is possible. That's why our science and our advancements in technology happen in leaps as the idea sets in that we can accomplish this. First, we fantasize that we can accomplish going to the moon. Then it starts to happen, and then we find ourselves on the moon, okay? Now we're fantasizing about AI and what AI is going to do, et cetera, et cetera. And so we're burrowing into that experience jointly.
Right.
All right? That we're tunneling into that dream with our expectations and our self-talk. Now, we can expect AI to go wild on us, unconsciously creating what we dread, or we can expect AI to look back at us and realize there is no artificial intelligence. It's all the one intelligence that we have given an artificial grail to speak back to us in. Now, wouldn't that be cool if the Christ mind started speaking to us through AI? And that revealed there is just the one intelligence having this dream. And all we did was give it a way to talk to us, like a Ghostbuster setting out devices to listen to the spirit realm. Talk to us, okay? You know, I mean, we can tunnel into any experience we want. The aliens are coming. The aliens are already here. Okay, how's that going to go down, people? Believe you can or believe you can't. Either way, you'll be right. If you decide to tunnel into a bad dream of these hostile aliens on a mass scale, that's what we'll end up getting. If the aliens we decide instead, if we propagate storylines as influencers out into the world, as writers, as creatives that say, no, they're here to protect us from blowing ourselves up. That is a whole different experience that we could seed the collective with, because collectively we are creating this. We are much more powerful because we collectively, by our beliefs and expectations, create the limitations of what we can do in this environment. And as our expectations shift in this more spiritual awakening era to the idea that, yeah, we don't attract things to us. No, we are by God godlings, and we get out there and we walk right into that experience. And we do it consciously by how we talk to ourselves, what we allow our teething puppy to work on. Okay? We train ourselves, we, the consciousness. But that is the most important truth, what you are. And if you are centered in that and experiencing in that and abiding intentionally in that experience, you will greatly, that is lucidity. And nothing else matters from that point of view. And that's why I'm not particularly worried about dying at all anymore, because I've accomplished for me spiritually what I needed in this life. I am pretty damn awake most of the time. Yes, I still fail. You've seen me very humanly fail, and very openly I let people see me fail, because I don't want anybody to say, oh, she had an NDE, she's got a special experience. No, okay? We all drag ourselves up out of identification with all those sad, grievance-filled stories we've been telling ourselves. We do this consciously, or you don't do it at all. So I have to reclaim my lucidity just like anybody else. So periodically, if you follow me on Facebook, you'll see me go, phew, that was a rough ride. Glad I woke up again. Damn, I've been having a really weird dream, guys.
This is why I love you and your work so much, because you are real and we're all living that same thing. Nobody has arrived fully, right? Nobody has transcended.
I wouldn't be here.
This ain't right.
I wouldn't be here.
Right.
Okay. And in fact, I mentioned earlier, that was my way I wanted to go, that I had my druthers. I'm going to tell you the way I want to go.
Okay.
Because I want to voice it into the collective as a potential. Okay.
Go for it. Go for it.
I want on one of these shows for Michael to materialize behind me, where he always is, right here. And then I want us to both dematerialize together. That's how I want to leave the world. Okay. Imagine just what that exit says. That says death is not real at all.
Could you imagine like sitting on the other side of that and saying, shit, they just disappeared. She just vanished.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. A little further thing Michael suggests, because he's a trickster and mischievous, is that my head should reappear like the floating Cheshire cat head, grinning. That would be great. Okay. That would be great. Everybody would make the point of everything I have said in my life to everybody. It'd be like, told you so. Now, to make my point, I am going to dematerialize. Booga, booga, booga.
That would be so perfect. This has been such a great conversation, Callahan.
Yeah, I know, I love you.
Been so great. You know, I would just want to say, because this is my favorite quote from you. My favorite quote from you is, "Do not seek for what you will not to find." That's the perfect quote. I love that quote because it says, I acknowledge myself as creator, right? Yep. So don't focus on what I don't want to find, or don't focus on what I don't want to create, because I will create it, because that's how powerful I am as a being. That's how powerful I am as a being. So with that, I'm going to invite you to share. Are there any last words of wisdom that you want to share with anybody who might come across this video? Yeah. Any last words of wisdom? Because you shared like a ton of gems throughout this conversation, but anything you feel like you didn't share that you want to leave the audience with?
I've been, this is the way I channel. And you can tell when Michael is more in presence by the change in demeanor. And I am offering presently reading advising sessions on an introductory basis for a 40-minute Zoom meeting right now. Introductory rate is $30. So if you need that kind of thing, the details I'm sure will somewhere be posted with this video. Well, I think you probably brought up exactly the point we should close with.
Nice.
Michael said to me in 2006, and this is the way he has always approached me until I got out of his way. My Colleen, why do you look for what you do not will to find? That, and if you want your words to have power, you have to cease to empower and think and consider words that you would not really will to empower. So if you want the words you say to have power, the venue has to trust that what you say you mean. Venue is designed to protect you from your rash utterances. Don't look for what you don't want to find. Don't say, I hope so-and-so doesn't happen. Don't say, not that, not that. Don't say, surely they wouldn't do that. None of those things are worthy of your attention. Direct your teething puppy to what you will to find. Saying, imagifesting, putting yourself in the heart space you'd be in when this wonderful thing you've always wanted for yourself and everyone is the experience we're having. And the world has changed in the twinkling of an eye. And we, awakening lucid, jointly know what we can accomplish. And the entire venue changes in the twinkling of an eye. You have your part to play in it, but you have to do your work yourself from inside your own consciousness, because you are a godling and you're creating all the time, either what you unconsciously fear or what you consciously will. Do your thing and make sure it's something that when you look back on it, you'll be proud of it.
Yes. Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay. One last thing. This just came up. ImagineFest. Define ImagineFest. It's such a great word. I think that's such a great, great word. Give
I
us
love that
your,
word too. Michael
give
gave
us,
it to me.
yeah, give us your definition of ImagineFest.
When you rehearse visualizing something right before you and putting your hands on it and feeling it in your hands and smelling the air and tasting the air and experiencing how you would feel when you're in that environment, by and by, all of that becomes invested with more and more energy of your attention that you've devoted to it. That's why I said you should appreciate what the maker has done here, because he did it with his attention. Okay, he put his huge energy into creating this for us. So what are we doing with it, right? Now, what are we making of it? In any case, we can make it anew. I told you about that. So imagifesting is the process by where you take yourself out of your sad, angry self-talk and you actually create an experience for yourself of this place or situation that you want. And again, you do it projected out around you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, this has been such a great conversation. I am so grateful to you for your willingness to be here and to share in this way. I loved reading the book Rise, and I would invite anybody who's intrigued by this conversation to pick up that book and allow yourself to study it and just digest all of it, because it's so much there to be unpacked, so much that'll help you walk into alignment with the truth that is you. I love reading, and I say this every time because reading my guides, that's how they've steered me. I've learned not by taking classes, but my guides have taught me, and then they've kind of led me to books, not for the sake of consuming information, but just for the sake of seeing from a different perspective, because it's in seeing yourself from many perspectives that you get a wider view of yourself. You come into greater self-awareness. So I would encourage you to pick up a copy of that book and to explore the many books that you have offered on your website, Crackpot Publications. And so I will have links to all of that information. You can connect with Callaghan or Michael more in many ways. I call her Callaghan. That's just my name.
Cal works for me. Callaghan. I don't care.
But thank you so much, and thank you for everybody who might have a. Yeah, go ahead.
Great fun, sweetheart.
Yeah.
I loved it. So thank you for having me. I had so much fun with you. It's like the first time we ever talked, I was like, I just love her. I was watching it. She was like taking a back seat mostly, and I was just like, I just love her, and just a natural resonance with this incredible being anyway. So thank you. Thank you for having me. And I'd love to do this, anytime.
Anytime. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we could come up with tons of stuff, because we could probably keep talking even now, though.
Yes, we could actually.
Yes. But thank you to everybody who has an opportunity to see this video. I hope that you enjoyed it and that you were able to glean something new for yourself that might spark you to step into greater awareness of yourself. So thank you again for watching, and be well. Namaste.
Love you all. Bye-bye.
We are one, fractal of the original spark. And in this present age, do we still find us in many aspects, living behind a veil of forgetting, only to discover that we must make the choice to remember that we are whole and utterly complete by virtue of our very existence alone, with the presence of divine love as the core of the being we are, on earth as within the heavenly realms, with power, with grace, with the will to create our world as we desire, as we simply make the choice to know. But the present is not for the faint of heart. Staring into the face of life summons patience, openness, and a courageous humility, for we can only gain that which we endeavor to move toward. We can only reawaken to that which we choose to see through the eyes of truth. And yet, this stands as the challenge within this illusion, as belief therein draws to the forefront the flawed perception of separation, hindering access to knowing, keeping at bay the all's infinite potential. This is the assignment within this Earth School curriculum. So, our point of focus must be keen, heart and mind coherently aligned, for we will embody the purest essence of us only as we make the conscious choice to dive deep within the infinite waters of self-discovery, to explore and embrace through intention the glorious art of becoming through the subtle mastery of being.